My name is Ava Morgan, the eldest daughter in a family that only remembered me when it was convenient and forgot me just as easily once the photos were framed. I learned to stay quiet. Not because I was weak, but because in their world, speaking up meant being labeled difficult. I stood behind the lights, behind my father's speeches, behind my sister's perfect smile, and told myself, let them believe I'm nothing. Then came the wedding. I wore black. I sat at the edge of their celebration, listening to them toast to a perfect future, one that didn't include me. That night, I didn't cry. I walked away. And from that moment on, I wasn't the quiet sister anymore. I became the name they'd never be able to ignore again. They toasted to perfection, and I sat there in a black dress that even the photographer cropped out. A string quartet played something so delicate it felt brittle. The ballroom sparkled like the inside of a champagne bottle, bubbles of laughter rising, golden chandeliers dripping above the long white tables. I caught a whiff of jasmine from the centerpiece in front of me and flinched. It didn't remind me of weddings. It reminded me of funerals. I sat perfectly straight, poised, present, smiling in ways that didn't reach my eyes. That's what years with this family trained me to do. To be wallpaper. Neutral, ornamental, and easy to ignore. Charlotte, in her designer lace and ivory heels, flitted between tables like a butterfly too elegant to land. She threw back her head and laughed at someone's joke, then leaned in for a selfie with one of David's cousins. My little sister, radiant, brilliant, and so impossibly adored. Meanwhile, I hadn't been mentioned. Not once. Not in the slideshow. Not in the program. Not in the seating chart. I was added last minute, squeezed between a distant aunt and a client Jonathan was trying to impress. He didn't even look at me when he passed by. The worst part? I didn't expect better. The father of the bride stood, wineglass raised, and the string music softened. Jonathan's voice boomed across the ballroom, thick with pride and self-satisfaction. To Charlotte and David, our shining legacy, the future of both families. May your lives be filled with joy, success, and everything you've dreamed of. Applause. Crystalline, automatic. I took a sip of water. My hands didn't shake. They never do in public. Then Charlotte took the mic, her smile beaming, cheeks flushed just enough to look real. And let's not forget my big sister Ava. My eyes met hers. That second stretched like a held breath. Proof that even when you don't make it, you can still show up. Laughter scattered across the room, polite, short, but loud enough to sting. I didn't flinch, didn't blink, just smiled. A clean, cutting line across my lips. If anyone looked close enough, they would have noticed the absence behind my eyes. But no one ever did. The rest of her speech was a blur of bridal cliches and grateful squeals. I sat through it. I nodded. I even clapped. Then, halfway through the final toast, I rose. Quietly. No scrape of chair legs, no drop napkin. I walked out. Nobody noticed. The air outside bit through the thin silk of my sleeves. I stood alone on the curb of Michigan Avenue, blinking against the wind. The city moved behind me like a distant tide. I thought of everything I'd swallowed over the years. The sidelining, the dismissals, the birthday dinners they forgot, the family photos I took but was never in. Tonight was just the last petal falling. I was done. Not in a dramatic, tear-stained exit. I was done in the cleanest, coldest way possible. The kind that doesn't ask for apology because it no longer believes one is coming. My phone buzzed. I didn't look at it right away. When I did, I saw one name. Ethan Blake. The message was short. Coffee at Nighthawk, 6 a.m. No pressure, but I think you're ready. I stared at it. The streetlight cast a pale gold halo around me. And for the first time in years, I let my smile be real. Ethan Blake never used exclamation marks. So when he said, "I thought you're ready," I knew he meant business. The cafe was nearly empty at 6 in the morning, except for the barista who looked half asleep behind the espresso machine. A broken lamp buzzed faintly above our table, casting a soft stutter of light onto the dark wood. The scent of cinnamon rolls curled into the air like something trying to soothe. Ethan didn't smile when I slid into the booth. He simply nodded and passed me a cup of black coffee. No cream, no sugar, the way I liked it. He always remembered the things no one else did. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, voice low but steady. "You used a period," I replied, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic. "Not a question mark." He cracked the faintest smile. "You always did catch the things that matter." 3 years ago, I saved his company from a public unraveling. A careless comment from a junior VP had gone viral, and the board was ready to feed someone to the wolves. I'd offered a quieter option, a shift in narrative, a series of recalibrated messages, a reshuffling of roles, all without drawing blood. He remembered that. But back then, I was just the consultant who never raised her voice. "You said you think I'm ready," I said. "For what exactly?" Ethan reached into his bag and pulled out a sleek folder. No label, just black leather. He slid it across the table. "A board position," he said, officially, "but the real offer's inside." I opened it. Financial summaries, market trends, a report with David's name on the first page. My eyes didn't lift. "You want me to work for you?" "No," he said. "I want you to help me dismantle someone else, but I need to know you're not here just to settle a score." I leaned back. The coffee cooled quickly in my hands. "I don't want revenge, Ethan. That would imply I ever wanted their approval. What I want is velocity. I want to stop being what they left behind." He studied me, then said, "So what do you propose?" I tapped the folder once. "We don't work for them. We take them." Before he could reply, his phone buzzed. He answered on speaker. "Rachel," he said, "you're on with me and Ava." A short pause, then a dry, precise voice came through. "Lovely. I assume Ava's up to speed?" "Fully," I said. Rachel Quinn had been David's operations manager. Once. Until she raised a question about discrepancies in vendor payments and got promptly rotated to a strategic advisory role, which was code for exiled with severance and silence. "I've been watching his house of cards from the outside," she said. "I've also been collecting a few pieces." "We'll need more than pieces," Ethan said. "You'll get more," she replied. "Starting with this. I found a gap in their compliance system. They built the facade but forgot to bolt the floor." I looked at Ethan. "We'll need a third-party vehicle. Something clean, quiet, with enough legal insulation to keep us from getting scorched when the structure collapses." "I have one," he said. "A dormant entity I parked years ago. You'll run it." "I'll need Rachel," I said. Rachel gave a dry chuckle. I wasn't planning on being left out. Ethan leaned in then, eyes sharp. "If we do this, Ava, you're not a shadow anymore. You're the storm." I met his gaze without blinking. "I don't want revenge. I want momentum." The call ended. We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the cafe growing louder as morning picked up speed. Then my phone lit up. A message from Rachel. "I found something. David's firm has internal gaps, massive ones." The email came from a former intern. No subject line, just a PDF and one sentence. "I think you should see this." Rachel's office smelled faintly of ink and burnt espresso. The table between us, solid walnut, cool to the touch, was buried under a scatter of documents and half-drained coffee mugs. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the room like silent witnesses, watching as another secret prepared to be cracked open. I clicked open the PDF, line after line of transaction logs, vendor IDs, signatures, everything too perfect. Until it wasn't. "There," Rachel said, jabbing at the screen. "Those contract IDs don't exist in the state registry. Phantom clients." "They inflated revenue to lure new investors?" I said, scanning faster now. "Built valuation on vapor." Rachel leaned back, arms crossed, her jaw flexed with tightly reined fury. You realize what this means? They're bleeding, I murmured. Quietly, internally. Rachel's voice dropped an octave. And legally. I thought of something Charlotte once told me, leaning close at a gala, lips barely moving. Perception is everything. She had meant it as a social survival tactic, but I would flip it, not to survive, but to conquer. I forwarded the document to Ethan and called him in. He answered on speaker, voice crisp despite the hour. Talk to me. We have proof David's firm is running phantom contracts to boost quarterly earnings, Rachel said. At least 17 by my count. Ethan paused. Can we get in before this leaks? Yes, I replied. But it has to be fast. We'll move to buy out their hard assets, servers, tech stacks, leases. The paper value will collapse once the truth hits. Rachel nodded. We hit the scaffolding before they even know it's on fire. Ethan hesitated, then asked, What's the angle? How do we announce without looking like vultures? A thought came, and it was almost too cruel in its elegance. Charlotte and David are hosting their 1-year wedding anniversary next month, I said. Full gala, investors, press, everyone will be watching. Rachel's lips curled. Let them pour champagne while you pour gasoline. I want the contract closed before the gala, I said. And the public reveal scheduled for the morning after. Ethan chuckled. Cold. Precise, I corrected. He agreed to draft the necessary moves. Rachel and I sat in silence for a moment after the call disconnected. The air in the room seemed denser, as though it too could feel the shift. Rachel turned to me. They're bleeding. You can gut them legally and cleanly. I signed the first round of acquisition papers. The pen clicked like a loaded chamber. Let them keep smiling, I said. We'll take the ground beneath them. Not 2 hours later, as I returned to my apartment, the concierge stopped me with a sleek white envelope. Hand-delivered, embossed gold lettering. I opened it carefully, fingers steady even as my pulse picked up. You're cordially invited to a celebration of love, legacy, and leadership. Charlotte and David, I didn't crash their party. I RSVP'd, in red ink, block letters, no title. Just Ava Morgan. That was enough. The paper felt heavier than it should have. Thick, indulgent cardstock embossed with gold. I held it under the natural light spilling through the glass walls of my new office. Minimalist decor. Skyline view. Nothing sentimental. Nothing accidental. Every piece of furniture earned its place, unlike me at their table. I slipped the RSVP back into the red envelope. No return address. No frills. Just my name. When I pressed the seal shut, it felt like sealing a coffin. My office door buzzed with a notification. A secured digital signature request. The final transfer documents. I reviewed them slowly. The stealth acquisition complete. Every asset of David's firm now held under a third-party entity I controlled. Ethan had coordinated the shell structure, Rachel the legal language. I was just the architect. Invisible, but decisive. One tap. One confirmation. The company that once shut me out now belonged to me. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then a familiar hesitation in my gut. I answered. Ava, Grace said. No preamble. Just my name. Clipped and cautious. Mother? I replied, tone flat. I received your RSVP, she began, voice wrapped in ice and silk. You know, this gala is not just about Charlotte. There will be partners, investors, important people. And I'm an embarrassment? You're unpredictable, she said. And frankly, some wounds aren't meant to be paraded in evening gowns. I looked out at the skyline. The city didn't care who I used to be. This isn't about Charlotte, she continued. It's about image. You show up looking like a vendetta and people will smell blood. I smiled faintly. Then maybe they'll ask who's bleeding. Her voice tightened. You may win the firm, Ava, but you'll lose us forever. I didn't flinch. I lost you when I started winning alone. She hung up. No goodbyes. No guilt that could stick. An hour later, Ethan forwarded me the final press draft. Neutral, surgical, already scheduled to go live the morning after the gala. Rachel texted, "We're green across the board. Champagne or silence until then?" I replied, "Silence." Then thunder. I thought the day was done. But just before dusk, my phone buzzed again. Voicemail. It was Charlotte. Her tone was sweet, airy, the kind she used when covering claws. "So glad you'll be there, sis," she sang. "I've reserved a seat just for you, in the second row near the dessert bar." I wasn't there to steal their moment. I was there to shift the ground beneath it. The ballroom hadn't changed much. The same opulent chandeliers bathed the room in soft gold, casting perfect shadows over imperfect people. The same floral arrangements bloomed across mirrored tables. And somewhere beneath the velvet and crystal, the same rot pulsed, just hidden better now. I arrived early, as always. It gave me time to observe, to count the masks. The string quartet was playing Vivaldi's Winter, ironic and sharp. Guests filtered in wearing smiles like armor. My black silk gown trailed behind me like a whisper no one could place. For the first 15 minutes, I was background. A whisper of a maybe. Then Charlotte arrived, radiant, rehearsed. Her arm linked with David's, both of them glowing with the curated sheen of curated success. "I told you." She laughed to an investor near the bar. "It's all about perception. David and I made it through. The company just needed the right kind of help." She winked, that coy, triumphant wink she had perfected since college. Ethan approached the podium. The hum in the room shifted, a fractional tilt in posture, in breath. "Good evening," he said, voice deep, grounded. "Tonight is about legacy, love, leadership, and a turning point." Charlotte clutched David's hand tighter. "Please welcome," Ethan continued, "the new executive director of Morgan Hayes Capital, Ava Morgan." Silence. Then the room exhaled, in confusion, in disbelief. Glasses froze mid-toast. One man coughed into his champagne. A woman blinked too many times. I walked. No speech in hand, no smile on lips, just precision in my step and fire in my spine. Each heel click echoed louder than the quartet. The screen behind Ethan flickered. The old logo of Morgan Hayes dissolved pixel by pixel until my name, in white over black, stood stark. Ava Morgan. Charlotte's smile cracked, first at the corners, then all over. David paled like milk gone sour. Grace's fingers whitened around her clutch, knuckles stiff with denial. Jonathan didn't speak. He just adjusted his tie 3 times in 20 seconds. Still, I said nothing. Presence was the speech. I stopped center stage, hands at my sides. I looked out over the sea of faces that once looked past me. The murmurs began. "Isn't that her? Ava Morgan? The one they said couldn't..." Whispers caught like sparks on silk. Beside me, Ethan leaned in. "Now they see you." I didn't blink. Number now, they can't unsee me. The applause didn't last long, but the silence that followed, that echoed. It was still dark when I woke. The city was hushed in that rare hour between endings and beginnings. No headlines yet. No inbox floods. Just a soft hum from the radiator and the faint scent of last night's perfume still lingering on my coat. I made coffee without turning on the lights. The kitchen, like the rest of the apartment, was calm. Sharp edges, neutral tones, everything curated to be clean, unsentimental. I stepped barefoot onto the balcony. December wind kissed my cheekbones, crisp but not cruel. Chicago was still half asleep, headlights blinking like tired eyes. The quiet wasn't victory. It wasn't peace either. It was room. Room to breathe. Room that used to be filled with needing approval, explaining absence, chasing seats at tables that were never set for me. Now I built the table. My phone buzzed. "Ethan." "Morning," he said. "We made front page." He sent the link before I could ask. The Quiet Takeover. Ava Morgan, from Charity Case to Power Architect. I sipped slowly. Let the words sit there. There's some noise, Ethan added. Some investors are confused, a few board members still trying to reach David. But the majority? Impressed, cautiously or otherwise. Let them be cautious, I said. They'll catch up. Rachel buzzed in 10 minutes later. She came up with a letter in hand, envelope already opened. Someone left this at reception, she said. Didn't sign a full name. The handwriting was neat, rounded. I don't know if you remember me. I was an intern. 2 years ago, finance rotation. We never spoke, but I saw you once walk out of a meeting that left me shaking. You didn't say much, but you didn't flinch. Yesterday, I watched the live stream. You made space for people like me. Thank you. I folded the letter in half, then again, tucked it into the inside pocket of my coat. The office elevator dinged open. 2 young faces waited by the glass wall. Fresh suits, wide eyes, hands clenched into nerves. Our new hires. They stood when I entered, unsure if they should smile. I smiled first. Not warm, not icy. Just real. You two settle in yet? I asked. Yes, ma'am, one of them said quickly. Thank you for the opportunity. You earned it, I replied. Just remember, perception isn't everything, but integrity might be. They both nodded, unsure if it was advice or a warning. I walked to my desk. The view was the same as always. Vast, indifferent skyline stretching toward a lake that didn't care who it reflected. I carried my coffee to the balcony again, watched the morning pulse through traffic lights and sharp-heeled ambition. My phone buzzed once more. A photo. Jonathan and Grace, sitting on a park bench bundled in coats. Between them, a crumpled newspaper. My face printed above the fold. No caption, no message, just an image. I didn't delete it. I didn't reply either. I turned away from the skyline and into the boardroom. The applause may have faded, but what Ava left behind was louder than cheers. It was a reckoning. For years, she was the footnote at family dinners, the shadow at celebrations, the sister who knew her place and dared not rise from it. But when the moment came, she didn't raise her voice. She raised the stakes. Charlotte, David, and the entire Morgan dynasty had built a castle on perception. Grand, gleaming, and hollow. Ava didn't break down their walls with fury. She rewrote the land deed beneath their feet. It wasn't revenge she wanted. It was a return to equilibrium. And when that balance arrived, it came not with fury, but with clarity. She didn't scream, "Look at me." She simply walked into the room they never thought she'd own, and owned it. Justice, when denied for too long, doesn't vanish. It waits, quietly, deliberately, until it's undeniable. And when it comes, it doesn't just correct the wrongs. It redefines the story. In Ava's case, she didn't become someone new. She reminded the world who she had always been, someone who deserved more than pity, someone who didn't ask for power, but earned it. The lesson is sharp but vital. Silence is not weakness. It is a strategy, until it becomes a sword. In a world obsessed with optics, Ava dismantled illusion with action. She never asked for applause. She orchestrated accountability. And as the champagne flutes stopped clinking and the whispers turned to awe, the truth stood where denial once sat. Sometimes the most radical thing a person can do is show up, not to fight for inclusion in someone else's narrative, but to write their own. Ava didn't wait for the invitation to change. She sent one in red ink and made sure her name was the only one that mattered. For those who've ever been sidelined, erased, or dismissed by the people meant to protect them, Ava's story whispers a quiet rebellion. You don't have to burn bridges. You can simply build a new empire across the river. Let this tale be more than fiction. Let it be a reminder that truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks in quietly, signs the contract, and changes everything. No amount of curated smiles or strategic silence can erase what's real. So if you're watching this and thinking of that moment, the one where you were overlooked, underestimated, or pushed to the edge, remember Ava. She didn't fight louder. She fought smarter. She waited until the stage was hers, then stepped onto it with no apology, no permission, and no regret. And perhaps in your own way, one day you'll do the same. Because no wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful narratives like Ava's. Comment 1 below if you've ever felt like the forgotten one. And now you're ready to rise.